Entertaining Talking Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the progression of Daniel Jones from year one to year two and some of the challenges he could potentially be facing. I don't think any Giants fan would argue going into year two of Daniel Jones' career, he's the most important player on this football team, and he is the most important part of the 2020 football season. We need to see this kid get better. We need to see him improve over year one to year two. Year two is a gigantic year in terms of the progression of an NFL quarterback. Daniel Jones showed a lot of raw, physical tools last year and ability to definitely be a guy that we should consider to potentially be a franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future, and hopefully he could be the next Eli Manning for the next 15 years for this franchise and give us the 2 Super Bowls like Eli did. That's all we could hope for. Jones definitely, showed he has competent arm strength. He can move around in the pocket. He does a lot of good things. But he definitely has some challenges going into year two, as do a lot of players. Obviously, the coronavirus is a huge factor, not just for Jones, but for every player on the New York Giants roster and every player throughout the National Football League. If the league does start on time, I still think a lot of things will be pushed back. You will not have OTAs start on time more than likely. Mandatory minicamps, things like that. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But at least from the way it looks right now, things will be pushed back. It will give Jones, and like I said, every quarterback in the league, less time to work with their wide receivers. Now, the reason why I think it's even amplified more with Jones, and we'll get into the quotes from Eli Manning, more so than most quarterbacks that are still in the same system. They've been in the league for a number of years. Jones has to learn a completely new offense, and it's part of the reason why I was in favor of trying to at least retain Shermer in some capacity with this team, even though I didn't view it as very likely, or bring in a coach with a similar mindset. Now, by no means am I upset that they brought in Jason Garrett, but the fact of the matter is, I think at least partially the reason that Daniel Jones was drafted for the Giants is they thought that he'd fit Pat Shermer's system very well. The West Coast style offense. Now you bring in a guy that has a completely new offensive philosophy. Now, will Garrett be flexible? I'm sure he will. And I think this coaching staff, Joe Judge's philosophy is to try to get the most out of your players' strengths. And, they'll have to pick and choose how they want to use Daniel Jones. But regardless, he's going to be learning a completely new playbook. You have a new head coach. You have a new offensive coordinator. You have a new quarterbacks coach. So Jones has a lot to learn, and he's not going to have the same amount of time that he would in most offseasons, at least the way it looks right now, with the new coaching staff. So that will be a huge challenge for Daniel Jones, and why I think that we have to be patient with Jones this year, at least for the first 3 or 4 games, and not expect him to light the world on fire. The fact that he's learning a new offense, even if it was a normal year, was going to be a challenge for Jones this year. And he's going to have less time with his young receivers to develop more chemistry. Something that I think he, definitely needs to work on. Obviously needs to learn to read playbooks better, things like that. Now, that's something that he could study at home. He could watch film and stuff like that, I'm sure. But he cannot spend time at the facility. He cannot really, get to talk to his coaches on a personal level or have time with his wide receivers. Obviously, everybody's got to stay healthy at this point in time. And that's going to be a huge challenge for Daniel Jones. Not just the virus, but obviously learning a new offensive system. But like I said, if anybody can do it, I think Jones is the type of player that can. Everything you heard last year is he's a hard worker. He learned the right way under Eli Manning. He said that had a lot to do with his progression throughout the year, and I do think he's going to work very hard to learn this system. The positive with Jason Garrett, I say it all the time, you go back and look at his time as an offensive coordinator. The Dallas Cowboys were very good in terms of an offense. Well, he was the offensive coordinator and the head coach. They consistently ranked in the top 10. And he got the most out of quarterbacks that you could argue were fairly similar to that of Daniel Jones in terms of skill set. Tony Romo, I think, is a fairly comparable player to Daniel Jones in terms of physical ability. I think they both have some mobility. They don't have the strongest of arms, and he made Tony Romo to be one of the best quarterbacks in football. So I definitely think Daniel Jones down the line could be very good in a Jason Garrett-led offense, especially if we could fix this offensive line. But with all these factors, it even pours on top even more to my theory that I think we should take a tackle as soon as possible to make sure that Daniel Jones has as much time as he needs to throw the football down the football field, trying to learn a new offense, and not having as much time with the coaching staff and the players to learn it. But I wanted to jump into a quote from Eli Manning talking about this and Daniel Jones in year two and some of the obstacles that he may have to face. In an interview with Steve Serby of the New York Post, Manning said that those things have the potential to interrupt Jones' ability to take a step forward this year. It has the potential to be, Manning said, and of course this is referring to the things I just talked about. A couple of things could make it difficult in the fact that it's going to be a new offense that he's got to learn, and things get pushed back, and you're not there to be around your teammates. It's not just him learning it. It's kind of everybody learning it together. Hopefully they can get back soon, and he can grow as a leader of the team. And I definitely think Daniel Jones is going to be a leader of this football team. I think he definitely has those traits. I think that's part of the reason why the Giants brought him in here. I think they viewed him as a guy that's going to handle the media very well. He's going to lead by example. Doesn't seem to be the type of guy that's going to point the finger, much like Eli Manning. That's why I think a lot of people compare the two quarterbacks, even though they might not be, extremely similar in terms of their attributes. I think off the field and the way they carry themselves are incredibly similar. So I don't really, have any doubts about his leadership ability and, to be the face of this New York Giants franchise. But I do think he could struggle in year 2 early on when you factor in all of these things. He's got a lot on his plate for a second-year quarterback. Teams, of course, will have more tape on him. They'll get to try to exploit his weaknesses, and Jones will have to learn on the fly. And I'm sure he will. He's a very smart guy, but it will not be easy, at least early on in the NFL season. But if anybody could do it, it's Daniel Jones. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.